The topic I'd like to talk on today is goal setting for the coach. And right off the bat, someone might say, "Are you a sports psychologist?" And I do not consider myself a sports psychologist. I did my master's work in sports psychology, and I started on my doctorate in the area of sports psychology and ended up changing universities, which didn't have the program. I took a lot of classes in counseling and used some sports psychology in my dissertation there. Um, but I've studied it. I've taught sports psychology at the undergraduate and graduate level. But I wouldn't say that I am a sports psychologist, but I utilize sports psychology as a coach. And that's the perspective that uh, I'd like to make this presentation from is as a coach that utilizes goal setting and utilizes sports psychology in my coaching. So the goals of this talk, having goals right here, number one are to help coaches develop skills to set goals for themselves. So the coaches need to not only help the athletes, which is our second goal, to enable athletes to help, to set goals, but also to set goals for themselves. So we have sort of a twofold purpose here. So there generally there's types of goals. A lot of this comes from Weinberg and Good. I've used their book when I've taught the course. They've done an excellent job. They've written a lot of papers. Good actually wrote a section in the USA weightlifting, one of their coaching education courses at one time on sports psychology. Um, if you could get a hold of that book, or you would like me to help you get a hold of it, I'd be glad to. So subjective goals are general statements of what you want to do. So, for instance, a general statement would be, I want to be on the podium at the Olympic Games, or as an athlete. And as a coach, you might subjective goal or a general statement is I want to develop and coach an Olympic champion. Okay. Now, objective goals are achieving a specific standard of proficiency on a task, and that's usually within a specific time period. So, a weightlifting example would be, even though I know we have coaches from other sports, I used a weightlifting example. So it might be I want to lift 1.25 times my body weight in the snatch at the 2023 African Games. It could be, I want to run a certain time in the 100 meter, or I might want to jump a certain height. So we set, uh, more specific goals there. As a coach, it might be I want to have 4 athletes I coach qualify for the 2023 African Games. So we have both subjective goals and objective goals. Now, in addition, we have outcome goals, performance goals, and process goals. Outcome goals are the competition results. You know, gold medal, silver medal, bronze medal, placement. Uh, you know, those are outcome goals. Performance goals are more like your personal records, in whatever your sport is. And process goals those are specific actions, things that you do to perform well, as far as your performance, your technique, and such. So, advantages and disadvantages of these goals. Outcome goals uh, can facilitate short-term motivation, but as we see, they often lead to anxiety before and during competition, or this may apply with a test or research in school. This is not just for sport, but in any kind of performance there. Performance and process goals are more precise than outcome goals and less dependent on the behavior of others. In other words, performance and process goals are more what we can control. We might be in the toughest, you know, group in sport. We might have all the world record holders and former world record holders in the 100-meter dash, and we may be competing against them. We might our performance and process goals might be right on. We might, break our personal record by a large amount, but we may not win because we're in a very tough group. So oftentimes, if you just are looking at outcome goals and your placement, it's hard to control that, which can cause anxiety. It's out of our control. But the performance and process goals are more controllable there. The performance and process goals are particularly useful before or during competition or a test or a research paper. Too much focus on a specific performance goal can create anxiety. So, if you're just focused too much on making that personal record and that's your only goal, or you're just got to make that A on an exam, that can cause some anxiety. Okay. So you don't want to have too much focus there. Process goals have all the advantages of performance goals. Okay. So those are the ones that we really want to work on there. Okay. The research. Athletes set goals to provide direction and help them stay focused. It's one thing they do. The top athletes use multiple goal strategies to exhibit the best performance. And one thing as coaches, we need to realize individual differences with the athletes we coach. So we don't want to set the same goals for all the athletes we coach. We could have group goals. If we're talking about team sports, you could have team goals, but it would be good to maybe have some individual goals as well with the members of your team. But again, you could have team goals as well in all these categories. Why it works. It helps to direct attention to the important elements of the skill, to mobilize the performer's effort, prolong the performer's persistence, and development of new learning strategies. Indirectly, goals influence performance by affecting psychological factors such as anxiety, confidence, and satisfaction. Goals influence psychological states. The athletes who set performance goals rather than outcome goals have less anxiety and more confidence and satisfaction. So if you're setting goals related to your performance that you can control better, and you set these goals appropriately and you achieve these goals, you're going to develop more confidence over time, okay, and be more satisfied. If you're looking at in the sport of weightlifting, if you're looking at trying to boost your confidence and be satisfied, if you're only looking at placement and you're trying to get on the podium there, and it just, the numbers just show ahead of time that you're not going to get there. You're going to be anxious trying to achieve that goal, and you're going to lose your confidence if that's all you're worried about. But if you're setting goals of performance, such as how much you're going to lift, how many lifts you're going to make, things like that, it's going to be better in the long run for you. With other sports, you can look at technical things. You can look at certain things that you may be having problems with technique that are hindering your performance. And if you overcome this bad technique or a technique you're trying to change, and you perform technically correct, that's achieving a goal. And if you do that, you're going to achieve more satisfaction and overall be more confidence, have more confidence in future performance competition settings. Goals need to be specific. Um, you don't want to just say, I'm going to do my best. That's good. You want to do your best. But for, producing more of a behavioral change, you need to set specific goals. So a general goal might be, I want to increase the weight lifted in the snatch, or I want to reduce my 800-meter time. So that's a general goal, and that's fine. But you need a specific goal as well. So you're going to say how much, you know, and again, it's generally we would put a time on that. How much do you want to increase your weight lifted by 8 kilograms, or I want to reduce my time by 4 seconds? Okay. Now, another consideration with goals is we want to set moderately difficult but realistic goals. We don't want to say, "Oh, I'm going to improve my snatch by 20 kilograms," if that's unrealistic, or I'm going to take 15 seconds off my 800-meter time. Those are unrealistic. And you don't want to set unrealistic goals. You don't want to set easy goals. You don't want to say, like, oh, I'm going to improve my time by 1 kilogram, or I'm going to reduce my time by 0.01 seconds. They need to be sort of balanced in the middle there. Something that's difficult, hard to get, but they can be achieved. So, we may say, okay, 4 kilograms in the snatch would be a realistic goal. Difficult, it's going to be hard, but it can be achieved. And same, maybe reducing 800-meter time by 2 seconds. But then, of course, what we're going to do is, how are we going to do this? That's the thing. You got to sit down and figure out, how are you going to achieve this through your training there. So we need long-term and short-term goals. We can use, they talk about goal staircases that link long and short-term goals. We can look at, what are our goals for the day, the week, the month, for the training cycle. If it's a 3-month cycle, what are our goals in that training cycle? Or we can look at the year, the quad, the 4 years between Olympics or between African Games or Commonwealth Games. We can look at that as well, or over a lifetime there. So we can use, different time periods there. We use in our training, and this is for weightlifting. Maybe when we finish here, some of you coaches in other sports could share how you use it in your training. We keep a lot of records in our training with our athletes. And we follow a periodized program there, or block periodization. And over time, we reduce our, start with higher repetitions and reduce them in a cycle. Usually our cycles are about 3 months, and we increase our intensity. But we keep a record of all our lifts, in other words, and we keep personal records for all sorts of things. I mean, for 10 repetitions, 5 repetitions, 3 repetitions, 2 repetitions, 1 repetition, not just one. So we keep those in multiple lifts, not just snatch and clean and jerk, our competition lifts, but for squats or for front squats or for snatch pull or clean pull. So with all the exercises that we're doing, we're keeping personal records. So what we do after each cycle, we sit down and we set goals for what we want to lift in the next cycle, and that sort of links in with our training. A lot of people use percentages, and we do to a degree follow percentages, but also we use the goal setting. And so if we were able to squat 101 kilos for 10 repetitions in the last cycle, we may set a goal of 103 for 10 repetitions in the next cycle. So it helps us, it helps to motivate the athletes to achieve that goal, something to shoot for. And of course, in the gym, people know if they're going for a personal record, they get all like, everybody gets behind the athlete, they get a little motivation, and it helps them. And and trying to achieve that goal there. And if the lifts are going up, if the performance in certain exercises are going up all through the cycle, then generally the competition lifts are going to go up also as far as the amount of weight. Uh, Also set performance and process goals as well as outcome goals. It's not bad to set outcome goals. It's not bad to say, hey, I want to get a gold medal or a silver medal, you know. So we should have those goals there. But for every outcome goal, set several performance and process goals that'll lead uh, to this desired outcome and to help you achieve these outcome goals. Again, like I mentioned before, set practice records, personal records, technique. If you're evaluating your technique, document that, keep records of that, or it's so easy to keep video files these days to look at the technique, and so many different apps that analyze the technique. But keep those. That should go along with your goal setting. Set goals for how you're going to improve that technique. Different psychological skills. I mean, I always talk about how we talk about psychological skills. We talk about using psychology, but it's like the last thing that we think of oftentimes as coaches and athletes. We get to a competition and we talk about getting psyched up for the meet. It's like, well, did you practice that? Did you practice that in your competition? I was watching one of the athletes in training in Bogota, and a lot of the kids in between sets, they're on their phones, they're texting, they're talking to their friends, they're taking videos of themselves to post to their training on all the different social media sites. And I saw this girl who in between sets, young girl would just sit down and just such a focused look in between her sets there. I mean, um, that was great for her training, to be so focused. But also, I'm sure that she in competition was much more focused because she practiced it. She practiced uh, focusing on what she was doing at the moment there, and it didn't have, wasn't dealing with social media and texting with her friends, in between every set. So you need to practice the psychological skills, whatever they may be, and whatever you're using in training, and not just come to the competition and decide, okay, all of a sudden we're going to get focused, we're going to get motivated, things like that. So you have to practice that as well. Um, of course, we do want to keep our personal records in competition, like the number of lifts, the times, placement, all these, any goals you have in competition. And again, this is where we may set some team goals. If you're involved with team sports, we may need to set competition goals for your team as well. Write everything down. I mean, again, here we are with all the phones and all the apps. There's a place to write this down. I mean, for years, people wrote it down that really did good goal setting. They wrote everything down in a little notebook. And if that works best for you, and it still may be, even though there are computerized apps to do this, write it down on a piece of paper if you need to, and a notebook where you can keep it and refer back to it. So record these goals. If you want to use your phone, you want to use a computer, go ahead and do that, but write it down. You need to develop goal achievement strategies. How much and how often things will be done in an effort to achieve a goal. Write down what you're going to do, but be flexible because it may need to change. As a coach, you need to consider the athlete's personalities, their motivations, their lifestyles, and their adaptive capabilities. We adapt differently. Athletes are different. So we need to take all these things into consideration, individually. For example, with lifestyle, If someone has a job and they're going to school, um, you know, their adaptive capabilities won't be as great for the training. So you may need to adjust the goals there. You may need to adjust the training, and therefore you may need to adjust the goals. You need to take care of an individual's goal commitment. Okay. So you need to be involved as a coach in encouraging the process. You need to provide consistent feedback. Okay. It needs to be consistent. Don't just give feedback one day and ignore the athlete the next. It needs to be consistent. And also get the athlete's input. See what the athlete's thinking and what's going on with them. Uh, Provide goal support. It's nice if you got family and friends and teammates that are supporting each other and supporting the athletes and achieving their goals. And again, uh, evaluation and feedback are a must to facilitate any kind of behavioral change through goal setting. Don't just set the goals and not do anything about them. So provide that feedback. This is something that's been around for years called SMARTS. This is related to goal setting. These are basics. Goals need to be specific, as we already said. They need to be measurable. And somehow you need to have, of course, it's easy with athletics and with weightlifting. We deal with numbers in these sports. Um, Other sports, team sports, oftentimes you may need to somehow set goals as far as, uh, you need to be able to put some sort of uh, measurement, some objective measurement with what you're trying to achieve there. So they need to be measurable as far as goals go. Action oriented. Can't just sit back. You got to do something to achieve them. Again, we've already mentioned how goals need to be realistic, uh, not too low, not too high. Timely. We've already mentioned that. You want to set it within what time frame. So if you're trying to lose weight, let's say I'm going to lose 3 kilos, and when are you going to lose those 3 kilos? You're not going to lose it in a week. You don't want to take 6 months for 3 kilos, but something, maybe lose 3 kilos in 2 months. And they need to be self-determined. Okay. You can have the coach may have certain goals for someone and certain goals for their athletes, but they won't be achieved unless the athletes themselves want to achieve those goals. So we need to design a system there. Okay. We need to assess someone's abilities and needs. I mean, where are you at right now? What are your abilities? What do you need to do? What do you need to accomplish? We need to look in different areas of goal setting, not just one, a broad range of goals and that may help to increase that performance. Identify influences on goal setting systems. So you need to know the athlete's commitment. Are they totally committed? Do they, is their goal to just, go to the Olympic Games, win the Olympic Games? Are they just satisfied to compete in local competitions? Nothing wrong with that, to want to compete in local competitions, but maybe come in 2, maybe 3 times a week for 45 minutes. But you need to know that. That's always been a frustration for me as a coach. When athletes say, "Oh, they want to," I always say that your behavior needs to match your goals there. So oftentimes athletes will say, "Oh, I want to go to the Olympics. I want to go to the Olympics," but their behavior doesn't match it. They want to party at night. They don't want to train hard. They don't want to be in the gym. They miss days. So I always push that athletes, that whatever your goals are, your behavior needs to match those goals there. And if that's all you're If your goal is just to compete locally, that's fine, but don't say you want to go to the Olympics and then train like have your commitment to training be such that you're not going to make it to a national event. Okay, we need to look at the athlete's potential, and we need to be honest with the athletes, as well. If we know that this athlete, doesn't have the potential to achieve, high goals, we need to work with them again to make their goals realistic. Okay. And of course, how much are they going to practice? What is their opportunity for practice there? How often can they be there? How long? What are their times for recovery outside of practice? I mean, they may be able to practice hard, then go to work, then to go to school. They may not eat very good. They may not get very much sleep. So in addition to the opportunity for practice, I should have probably put on their opportunity for recovery as well. Okay. So we need to sit down with the athletes and we need to plan goal achievement strategies, how we're going to accomplish these goals. It fits in perfect with developing the training plan. Okay. Coaches need to schedule meetings with their athletes. Or, again, if we're team sports, we may have team goals that we talk about, but if you're able to, it's nice to talk to individual athletes. Set one goal at first. Don't have too many goals. Start small with just, maybe one goal. Look at different strategies to achieve this goal. How are you going to do it? And you need to support the athletes, check on them, encourage them. And then, at a certain point, you need to evaluate it. It's just like with our training, we do all this with the training. We look at what we need to do to train better, how to make a better training plan for better performance. I talked at the IWF coaching education meeting last week on recovery, adaptation, recovery and adaptation. So, in addition to our developing this training plan, we need to develop a plan for recovery and adaptation. We need to monitor the athletes, and this all fits in with our training as well as with goal setting there. Okay. So we need to provide support and encouragement for training and for the goals that are set. Need to reevaluate. Of course, we want to eventually set goals in many areas, including, as we mentioned before, the psychological skills. Some of the problems that we have are convincing athletes to set goals. They may not want to do it. They may not want to set specific goals, as we talked about, are so important. Sometimes they set too many goals too soon. They go the other way, and they fail to adjust their goals. Sometimes you need to adjust. Maybe they're too high. Maybe they're too low. We need to adjust there. Sometimes we don't look at the individual differences. We just set the same goals for everyone. And we got to realize that people are different. We need to understand that. Their lifestyles are different. What they do outside of training may be different. So we need to understand this. Some people may not be able to achieve their goals because of their lifestyle outside of the of training and practice. They may, again, work, school, family problems, whether they, are eating well, and whether they're sleeping well, things like this, we need to understand. And another problem is not providing goal follow-up and evaluation. You may set goals and then you forget about them. So again, write them down, follow up with them, and then evaluate these goals every so often and reset them. All right, this is the reference I talked about, Weinberg and Good, Foundations of Sport and Exercise Psychology. It's an excellent sport psychology book. I've used it as a textbook before. Here's some links, and I'll get this to John. This is more, these are in general. These are, I can't get these links. I'll get these to you. These are links that look more at educational type things, but they still apply um, they can still apply to athletics and to sports as well there. Yeah, I say sometimes I'll say athletics, and usually they think the U.S. and a few other countries, the countries always talk about track and field as opposed to the rest of the world talks about athletics. Generally, in the U.S., athletics is pretty much synonymous with sports in the U.S. So anyway, all right. So, are there any questions? Anybody have any questions on goal setting before I start asking you questions? There's somebody. L, I see.
Yes, thank you very much, Prof.
Yeah.
What I've just realized is that I, as a coach, I did not know the difference between, in fact, on how to set these goals. That is the long-term goals and the short-term goals. So I did not actually know the difference and how to go about them. So I think you have just ignite something in me. And sometimes I, as a coach, may have certain goals which are not in line with that of an athlete. And I've just realized that could create a lot of problems. And one another thing that I've paid serious attention to as you are presenting is the lifestyle of an athlete. Because there are certain things that we as coaches may not have control of them. And
Right.
lifestyle as an example. So I think you have actually ignite something in me that I need to look into, specifically in terms to psychology in sports in general. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much. Those are wonderful. Those are great comments there. I think we do often, I did as a coach, you don't, you think about, coaches always study, how to train, and we want to come up with the, best practice schedules, we outline that, periodize that, and we oftentimes forget the lifestyle of the athlete may uh, dictate how we need to change that. I've talked to a coach again, at the same coach of this lady that was this young girl that was so focused in her training. I talked to her coach, and he talked about how she tries to excel in school, and she tries to do the very best she can at everything, and you can't control school. Sometimes there's so much studying and school, and sometimes the athletes have to work, and we have to take that into consideration. It's so important. I've talked about that a couple times, but it's just something that you brought up that's so important. You got to consider what's going on with the lifestyle, and that sometimes more and training doesn't help performance. It hurts it because there has to be the balance. So without uh, recovery and then an adaptation to the training load, um, the practice schedules there, they're not going to improve. So it has to balance. We need to be aware of this, and that goes along with our goal setting. The goals maybe need to be a little bit lesser, and what we want from their performance. Um, if they do have too many things going on, and sleeping and eating and all those things are important. Their relationships at home. I mean, a lot of things we talk about stress in someone's life, and we want to minimize stress so that adaptive energy can be used as far as our training goes there. So those are all important there. And yes, it's so important to make those little goals, that keep you motivated, and those goals, build to help you achieve those more long-term goals there. So, yeah. it all just, it all just sort of goes together. All these things interact. All, it's more. It's not just one thing, as we know in sport. It's the physical, the psychological, the social. All those things are interactive, and coaches need to consider that and have a good understanding of sports sociology and sports psychology and physiology and biomechanics. I always try to some degree we need to learn the sciences. I've said this before, but my good friend Mike Stone always says that doctors, medical doctors, study science for 2 years to better be able to practice the art of medicine. And coaches should try to study science as much as they can to better practice the art of coaching. So anytime we can learn more about the different sports sciences, I think the better coach it makes us become. But we need to consider the athlete as a whole, and we need to look at a more holistic, I guess you could say, a holistic approach to our training plan to include, you know, both, consider both the physiological and the psychological and the biomechanical and social all as well.
Thank you very much, Prof.
Thank you.
Kyla, if I may also ask or just give a comment, is there a possibility of one focusing on certain aspect of the goal and forgetting the rest of the performance, all the performance parameters of the game, and as a result losing, on other areas and ending up building one area which at the end of the day does not, give out the performance or the outcome goal that was intended.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad you brought that up because there's an example. I won't say the university. I will say the sport. I was at a university at one time, school. The gymnastics coach, the women's gymnastics coach, got so focused on body composition. We had a tank there do the underwater weighing, and looking at percent body fat, and he became like so focused on the body on the body composition of the athletes, and he was doing inappropriate unhealthy practices. They would put like rubber suits, sauna suits on and go out and run, and which is not good. You lose water weight, and it's unhealthy, and it's a dangerous practice that shouldn't be done. But the point is, he was more focused. He got so focused on body composition, I think he lost sight of the fact that possibly reduction in body fat, increase in lean tissue might help performance of gymnastics. But he got too focused on it. There's other factors that affected the performance in gymnastics, and not just that one. So we have to look at all the factors and not get too focused on one thing. There needs to be a balance.
All right.
Is that pretty much what you were thinking along those lines?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And
Could you kindly
also talk about some of the barriers that could hinder us from achieving our goals, and how often should we be reviewing our goals? For most the short-term goals, to be precise.
Yeah. I mean, at any point you might want to change something if you realize that, it's not working, you're not getting there. But I like to pretty much, like we follow, like periodization in our training. And I know in weightlifting, other coaches could speak on other, sports. Um, we usually have competition every 3 to 4 months. And so our training cycles are generally, 3 to 4 months. And so generally we evaluate after each training cycle. So we're reevaluating the goals, and we're reevaluating the training plan, reevaluating many things as far as training and recovery and adaptation. And of course, I mentioned monitoring is so important, trying to keep good records. So those, not only we're measuring many different aspects. We may be measuring the lifts and weightlifting, the times and track and field. Uh, we might every so often look at some psychological tests. The profile of mood states test is used often, looking at different moods of athletes to uh, monitor the athletes as far as their ability to recover and adapt there. So yeah, to me it should be uh, every training cycle, maybe every season or mid-season. But then as you adjust the uh, short-term goals, you need to also, if that may cause you to adjust possibly your moderately term goals or your longer term goals. So one may affect the other if you reset those goals. But I like just a simple answer. I would say, at least for me, every 3 to 4 months.
All right. If no one is willing to ask a question at the moment, I would again ask you to talk about, if you could, strategy in goal setting. Is there a strategy? Can we talk about strategy in goal setting?
As far as, yeah, we sit down and we need to start, looking at what we're trying to accomplish. I mean, what are you trying to accomplish with an athlete there? What do they want to achieve? You need to know what they want to achieve long term. Like a new athlete comes in the gym, it's like I guess almost you don't want to. Why are you here? What do you want to accomplish? What is your long-term goal? What do you want to? Why did you come to our gym? And talk to them. You don't want to just say, why are you here? But you sort of talk with them and see what are their goals? Why do they want to be here? And what do they want to accomplish? Is it, do they, I'll just give an example in our gym. Like we're a gym for weightlifting, but we're also for sport performance. They may come in our gym and their goal may be to be a better football player. And so we talk about, what position they play, what they're trying to accomplish, why they're in there. Of course, what we can help them do is to get maybe stronger and faster and agility. So we look at, those aspects of strength and speed and agility. And then we sit down and we figure out how we're going to do that. And we specifically try to look at some numbers there. So we want to get stronger, but how strong do we want to get? So we start looking at different training cycles, how much weight we want to start with, what kind of increases over time, and generally we start more ourselves with, we look at this long-term goal, but we talk about specifically what we want to do in each training cycle. And then eventually we build, more and more goals there based on that once we get to know the athlete more.
Okay. And I believe this would effectively apply on individuals because not everybody has same needs or you know. So I think it's more of an individual based, not just a team thing, because people are different.
Yeah.
People have different strategies.
Yeah, I can get you those links. I can get some, different some information on just little steps to take and little forms and such that you can use as a coach there that might be helpful and setting those goals there. So, to me, you get to know the person first. You get to know the athletes. It's sort of get maybe with me, it's like um, oftentimes start with more of a an outcome goal and just asking them again why they're there and what they want to accomplish. Why are you here? And then we sort of go from there and start breaking things down more specifically on how we can get that person to that point there. Okay. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What can we do to help improve those weaknesses and how we can overall help them to become a better athlete and how we can, develop all the skills that they need to be a better performer. So over time, we can start looking at more specific things there to achieve that.
All right, James had his hand up. Maybe can now ask a question.
Okay, I had a question on about the goal setting. It should be self-determined, and the athlete should be committed. And we should also be realistic with the athletes. For example, if they can't achieve or meet their objectives, what as a coach, what should you do? Should we just rub them off, or we use a different strategy? For example, as you said, the athlete says, I want to compete in the Olympics. And when you assess the athlete and when you look at that specific athlete, you see it's not possible. What as a coach, what should we do? Should we just rub the athlete off or use a different strategy? Thank you.
I think, a different strategy. I think sometimes as coaches, we want to say, oh, we want to rub that out. We want to get rid of that athlete, but that's not what I do. I don't think many coaches do that. Coaches are usually trying to help people and help them in any way that they can and sort of adjust to the athlete situation, just, maybe, you need to reevaluate everything and take smaller steps. And maybe sometimes there's an athlete that may not make the, you know, uh, Olympic Games. I mean, I've coached for close to 50 years and I've had um, one athlete that I coached from day one make the Olympic Games. I mean, that's one in 50 years, one in a lifetime. So we don't always, make the Olympic Games. And, we may never coach an athlete that makes it to the Olympic Games, but, we try to figure out at, what level they can make it. And, oftentimes, if we set the goal too high, it just causes discouragement and they give up. So again, that's why we want to have like some, maybe that's a long-term goal to make the Olympics. That's everybody's dream, but we, like, what are some other things, can we, qualify, for the, Kenyan national championships and then maybe the African championships and then the African games, Commonwealth games, sort of like go to higher events. And, if we maybe focus more on those smaller events, build that confidence up. And oftentimes when that confidence is built, the motivation increases there, you know. I, sometimes I don't, this is a question for you guys. I mean, um, I know journalists have their jobs, but sometimes you get this question, how many medals will you win for us? And I try to take that again, those are those goals that you want to try to take emphasis off, and I generally, my response to try to, try to explain to the journalists, that our focus is to do our best to, achieve personal goals and, uh, eventually we do get on that podium and win medals. And, um, so sometimes I think, don't give up on athletes, just try to adjust and try to maybe readjust things. Here's an example on personal goals. I'll mention is that Kendrick Ferris is the athlete that I coached that made the Olympics. In fact, he made 3 Olympic teams and won 3 continental championships. Um, he came in when he was 11 years old, and in 1997, 98, and 10 years later, he made his first Olympics in 2008. At that time, I was not one of the national coaches. I paid my way to Beijing to train him prior to the competition. And during the competition, I sat in the stands with his mother and with another athlete who had trained with Kendrick, who started also when he was 11 years old, and they had developed a close friendship over the years. He came to see Kendrick lift. So I was in the stands with Kendrick's mother and with Justin, his friend, and who was also a weightlifter that I coached. And on Kendrick's third snatch, he got a personal record, and I got all excited. And I said, "Wow, Kendrick got a personal record in the snatch." And Justin said to me, he said, "Coach," he said, he said, "Here we're at the Olympic Games, and you're still excited about personal records." And I said, "Well, yeah, Justin." I said, it's like from day one through the Olympic Games. If you start setting those, those personal records in the gym for yourself, oftentimes those personal records become, um, regional records, and they become national records, continental records, and then maybe even world records. But you got to, start with those personal goals there. So, yeah, always keep, I think that's what's so important. I worked at one time with psychiatric patients in the prison system, and I did exercise as therapy. And that was a big part of the therapy was, and using the exercise was basically we sort of set goals there and used, of course, our focus and goals was to improve, how much weight they lifted, um, reducing their heart rate, their exercise heart rate, and possibly resting exercise heart rate with some more aerobic type things on an exercise cycle. So those were some of our things. But what we did is we kept records and pointed out the records and tried to look for improvement there, to keep them motivated to keep working. But it also built up some confidence in them, and that they were able to achieve things. And I've had reports before of, with some of the athletes I've coached, the parents have told me that, that so and so is, they hold their chest up higher, they look people in the eye, they're gaining confidence. So sometimes we know as coaches that some of the things we do with the athletes, to build that confidence, carries into other aspects of life, school and socially and such. So, that's one of the reasons I coach, and that's why I've coached American football and I've coached athletics, and I like weightlifting because oftentimes you can control the factors, a lot as far as the weights, and point things out about that improvement that builds that self-confidence that may, spread to other things. And again, I guess that's all related, that's related to our goals and what we did with the patients there in the prison is, we set goals and when we showed that improvement there. Then if they didn't make improvement, we lowered the goal and, looked at different aspects and didn't focus on one thing, but we were, looking at some of their aerobic achievements, their flexibility, we're looking at physical fitness there. So
Any other?
does that help any? I feel like now I'm almost instead of lecturing, I feel like I'm preaching here. I'm getting, but no, really, I mean, it's like, once you start, I mean, so many things just, there's so many interacting factors and a lot of things don't exist alone, as a coach. All these things come together. I mean, you're trying to develop athletes physically, but we know that there's mental issues. There's things that we need to do as coaches to improve as you say, right behind you, train the person first, not the sport. So we're dealing with, helping people, and helping them in many aspects of their lives. And we know as coaches, it's like, that's a big thing is to place the athlete's well-being at the top, their general well-being and their life, their career, to be involved to help the athletes in all aspects of their life and not just performance in the sport there. I mean, that's our focus is the sport and hope that, but we need to, consider them as individuals there. So.
Yeah. Yes, you are right. As we set the goals, sometimes with athletes, we forget that they're people.
Yeah.
And we have to take that into consideration that sometimes the goals that we may set for the athletes are not achievable or attainable. So,
Yeah.
and again, this depends on the age and the outcome that whatever you want to achieve.
Yeah.
So,
do we have any team sport coaches here? Does anybody coach team sports that's here? Have any comments? Are there any strategies they use or?
We had a basketball coach. I don't know whether she's still in there. Is Nelly still in?
Yes.
Ivan, okay.
Yes. This is Ivan from Uganda, Ivan Masakwe.
Thank you.
I think for me, the strategy I use, I started with national competitions. I managed to set a goal for my athletes to win the nationals. Then from the nationals, we went to East Africa. We won East Africa, we went to Africa. So I was pushing more for them to win also other international medals. So I think it's better for the coaches to start with small goals, small goals for their students, because I tried this and it worked. As you think of big goals, but you first start with the small goals. After the small goals, you go to another one, just like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Another thing we talked about, training goals, but, oftentimes you have, the goals related to recovery and adaptation. It might be, like your sleeping goals. And again, that's something that we can monitor and keep record of is how many hours we sleep and quality sleep. And, there's different devices, the watches and different things to monitor sleep. But, simply we could just record sleep. But, sometimes we might need to get a sleep specialist, and set goals as how many hours you want to achieve and to sleep and how you achieve that. And there's certain ways you can't just set the goal, but you have to have ways. So, it's like, you got to wind down every night, make sure that, it's quiet. Make sure your bed is comfortable, make sure it's dark, turn the phone off, don't get on the phone. So, those are things that we can do to help an athlete sleep better. So we can't just say, we want you to sleep 8 hours every night. You have to talk with the athlete on how you're going to sleep 8 hours every night, try to go to bed at the same time, all these things about the temperature should be certain degrees and all that. So you have to give, how are you going to accomplish that? The same with eating. If the athlete wants to gain body mass or they want to lose some body mass, change body composition, we may need to bring in a dietitian or somebody that's an expert on eating to help us, with the strategies to change the body weight. We just can't say, okay, our goal is to lose, 3 kilos. Well, how are we going to lose 3 kilos? What are you going to do regarding your diet and your exercise to lose those 3 kilos? I mean, how are you going to change the caloric intake? How are you going to keep it healthy? If you're a coach and that's not your expertise, how are you going to, can you get someone who's a registered dietitian, a certified nutritionist to come in to help you with those athletes to achieve those goals, with psychological skills. It'd be great if you have access to a sports psychologist to come in and help you set. They can help with the goal setting, but they can also help with individual things like, reducing anxiety, competition anxiety, motivation, things like that. So, it's like we said earlier, you can, you want to set goals, you want to set them moderately and, make them a little difficult, make them work for it. And, but you still have to have more of a step-by-step method of getting there. And we do that with our training, at least, as a coach, here's our training plan. This is, there's the exercises, your sets, your reps, your percentages, this is what you're going to do. This is your plan to improve your strength and to lift more weight. You have a step-by-step plan there. But we need to have that in a lot of different areas. And so we have to have a plan to get there and set small goals along the way, to help with that motivation there to keep them going.
So, Kyle, if I get you correctly, goal setting is not an individual thing; it's a collective responsibility. And probably on that, we've talked much on the athlete. What about the coach? What are some of the support systems or the reviews that a coach can also use to ensure rather to know that whatever goals he or she is setting are realistic, attainable, and are of course giving out the results that are he or she desire?
I guess I'll answer personally. Of course, as a coach, I always wanted to produce the best athletes possible. Wanted to have athletes go to the Olympic Games, to go to World Championships and such. So, but I also, a goal of mine is to learn more. I've like, I guess you could say, learning goals. I want to learn more about sport. I'm still trying to learn. I'm trying to learn about how to be a better coach. What steps can I take to be a better coach? How can I learn more about physiology and biomechanics? And I keep saying these things over and over again, the sports sciences, but they're so important. And, they still have so much to learn in the different areas there. And if you're coaching kids, you need to know about motor development and motor learning, how people learn, how people learn skills, and, at what time in their lives is the critical times of learning, like we talk about long-term athlete development. So as a coach, I want to, those are goals that I have to improve my knowledge, that I can take it and not only learn about it, but to be able to apply it in my methods as a coach there. you know, I want, so learning is a big thing of mine. And again, if I learn more and it possibly helps my coaching skills, then I'll be able to better achieve those goals of getting athletes to, you know, higher levels there, which is generally, I think, one thing that we all want to do. We all want to win. We all want to, we want our, you know, our teams to win. We want our athletes to win. Uh, but also, as I mentioned before, in developing athletes as people, you know, in their individual lives. I mean, I get great satisfaction when I see that, you know, someone that I coached is now a coach and they're helping other uh, uh, people there, and or that someone is now a doctor and that they're helping to heal people. And you know, I get satisfaction, and I guess a goal that I have as a coach is not just that they excel in their sport, but they excel as people. And that, you know, if we look at the whole Olympic spirit, that's what, you know, it's about, you know, to develop the whole person. That sport is part of their lives there. And, you know, as coaches, we can help in that part of their life, but, you know, we need to remember that, um, we need to be zealous, but not overzealous, you know, in our sport there. And that we need to, you know, think about healthy things, keeping the athlete healthy, both physically and psychologically, and help them develop as a person. Right behind you there, I keep seeing that, train the person first, not the sport, but to help them as people. You know, I have an example of a coach. It's um, I coached American football some, and even in my mid 30s, I went back as what's known in the U.S. as a graduate assistant. I don't know if you're familiar with that. At a university, it's sort of a beginning level in college sports. You're actually a student, um, and you work. You know, they pay for you to go to school, and you work as a coach's assistant. So this was American football at a big school, Louisiana State University, which I teach is a part of that system. And I did teach down there, but I went back in my mid 30s. I didn't really need to go to school again. I'd almost finished my doctorate. I'd finished my coursework, and I was coaching American football at this big university. And we had a um, very important game. I had not quite finished my doctorate. I had to defend my dissertation. And this was going to take place on the Monday after this big game on Saturday night in Alabama. It was Louisiana State University against Alabama. Big game, you know, conference championship. And these were two big names, these two schools in American college football. And so we had dinner before the game. I was getting ready to leave, you know, to do what I needed to do. And the head coach named Bill Arnsparger was a very, you know, wonderful person, um, uh, outstanding coach. He called me over to his table, and I thought he was going to have me do something related to the, you know, the game that night. That's something that he needed me to do. But he wanted to talk about my dissertation the next Monday. And he's giving me advice. He said, now, if your committee gets you off your topic of your research, he said, you bring them back in line and tell them that's not what my research is about. And, you know, you tell them, you know, that this is what it's about, and you get them online. And I'm thinking, we're about to have one of the biggest games of the year, you know, and we're about to play it in a couple hours. And this coach is talking about my dissertation, and he's concerned with me as a person. I thought, God, what a wonderful thing. You know, it's like the game was important to him. We ended up winning the game, but, you know, he was concerned, you know, with me as an individual. and things outside of sport. And that meant so much to me, and it taught me so much about, how important it is that coaches are concerned, as you said, with the person first, and that person and their well-being, and not just, how high they can jump or fast they can run or how much weight they can lift or how they can maneuver on the field. Coaches need to genuinely be concerned, with their athletes. Um, I know we were talking about goal setting. I may have got off the subject, but I think those things are so important. But
Right.
again, as we're setting goals, I think those are considerations as the person as a whole, and when we're setting those goals, and not just in how they can perform on the field, but possibly we need to consider that person as we're setting those goals. Consider the whole person there, and the person is an individual.
Excellent. It's very good and elaborate explanation. It's not about you, it's about others as well. The healthier they are, the better they are, the better for you too. So, is there anyone with a burning concern? Anything that you need the coach to clarify, the professor to clarify? Anybody? Okay.
And one more comment again, as I started out with, I am not a sports psychologist. I am not the total expert on goal setting, but I've tried to share some ways that I utilize goal setting as a coach there. And I think it's important, just as simple, I think it's very important, and something that needs to be implemented and done on a regular basis, with athletes.
Thank you so much. Lefala, do you have something to say? Lefali?
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much. I've realized that there is a difference between an individual sport and a group sport.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not just the question, actually, could be just to add on to what Professor is saying, that yes, what is more important is even if you are coaching an individual sport or a group sport, what is more important is to look at the individual capacity, if I may put it, or the individual
Person.
the individual one.
Person, yes.
I want to say an individual is very important in any sport. That's what I want to bring to all of us attention, and even to my attention as well. So that goes on to say that even when you train the people, whether they are a group or it's an individual, you have to pay serious attention to what everyone is doing or is actively doing in the sport that one is coaching.
That's good point there. Very good. Made that also made me think of something else with a team sport. You may need, to rely on and get help from your assistant coaches, as well. It'd be great if you could sit down with every athlete, but if you have a larger number, of course, you probably have more assistants as well who may have to be trained and take on some of these responsibilities. But just think as an athlete yourself, coming up, and particularly with a team sport, you know, just to be able to sit down with the head coach and talk to him, it's got to be motivating and make you feel good that the coach is concerned about you and what you want to achieve individually, you know, because if you can build those, um, you know, build up those individuals, of course, your whole team's going to perform better as well. But it'd be great you know, if you can, you know, on a regular basis, sit down with each athlete, you know, it lets them know how important they are to the team. If you know, the coach is sitting down with, you know, you're thinking, man, the coach is sitting down with me, wants to know what I think, what I want to achieve, and he's helping me work a plan to achieve my goals. And if you can do that with all the athletes, you're going to definitely build up, you know, that team there, that motivation and the morale of the whole team there. So again, though, the team may be so time restraints and may have so many athletes that you may need to rely on your assistants, but they need to be, you know, taught to do the same things that you're doing with the athletes, as far as sitting down with them individually and helping them set goals and set strategies and such to achieve those goals.
All right. Any other concern? It's 7 o'clock in the morning in the US, so we need to give Dr. Kyle some time to relax and set up his day. It's Friday as we are heading towards Saturday. Friday afternoon, so we are more relaxed, but you, I know it's just starting the day. So if there's no any other more concern, let me just take this opportunity to thank Kyle for availing himself and giving us this wonderful presentation. You've really given us a lot of insight in terms of goal setting for team, individual, and as a coach. So, and of course, with the links that you sent, I believe we are not the same again from when we started or how we started up to this point. We've gotten more skills rather in terms of goal setting, and we really appreciate your time and effort in ensuring that this program, you know, succeeds or helps others as we want to. Otherwise, thank you so much and have a great day.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. You know, this is this is what I love to do, and I appreciate the opportunity, John. Thank you so much. I hope
You're
everybody has a
welcome.
good day, good weekend, and I hope to be back here with you guys again. And I look
Anytime.
forward to that. Thank you.
Anytime we'll invite you.
Asante sana.
Karibu sana.